Greetings from the far side of the galaxy, I'm Fury, your host the most, back with this video's other half. To make things quick, we have three main metrics: buffs and debuffs, synergy, and coolness. Check the other video, link in the top right, for an actual explanation on what those mean. Time's a-wasting, so let's pick back up where we left off with number 5, Halloween Toji. This unit's gimmick lies entirely in its CS, or its charge skill. At the start of every phase, he drains CP, combat points, from his allies. That may sound like it sucks until you realize that his CS has infinite range, deals CP and HP from everything it hits. On longer stages like dungeon quests, this can lead to a funny loop of Toji using his CS to nuke the board, and then getting enough CP from his CS that he can nuke the board on the next phase, and so on and so forth. And even outside of his CS, he's a general powerhouse that can't be slept on. At phase start, he gets Brawn and he curses himself, and he also gets curse strengthening when appearing. Right away, that is, at worst, a 1.15 times buff and a 6 times buff you're guaranteed to have to his attack. That's right, I said guaranteed because those three skills have 100% proc. He also has a 40% chance to apply possession to enemies, which isn't good proc, but possession is the best debuff in the game. And well, his possession's garbage proc doesn't really matter when he can kill everything he touches, now does it? Even when he leaves, he helps, applying double lock to enemies and protection to allies. His synergy is pretty high with any unit that spams CP, but not only to others, but to themselves, because remember, he can steal it. And even if you don't want to do CP with him, he still has a high attack stat and does possession. He's just good. He's even wand attribute, meaning if you have to face his elemental weakness, you can just throw him in the back where he's less likely to get hit. Coolness wise, I know a lot of you are gonna get on my grill for this, but I think Toji's kind of boring. He's just the straight man of the summoners, and not straight as in heterosexual, but straight as in the character archetype. He's business in the front, business in the back, frankly too much business, and I'd wish he'd just chill. That being said, I do see why people like him. In a cast full of weirdos, someone as subdued as Toji is a pretty rare treat. He's like Housamo, but for non-furries, the boring choice for the basic bitch. Number 4, the daddy of the deep, Dagon. Do you guys know what power creep is? In storytelling, it's when new villains are continuously stronger than the last. Think of how it went from Frieza blowing up a planet to Cell destroying a solar system to Boo destroying a galaxy. The reason I bring this up is that something similar happens in games where better and better stuff is released. You see, way back in the day, Shino used to be one of the best units in the game. He applied this thing called Countdown, which removed a ton of HP over 2 turns. It was great. Well, that was years ago, and Life Runners finally let Power Creep replace Shino in the form of Dagon. He's also Sword type and Infernal attribute. He even has a similar skill that just removes a ton of HP from hit units. But get this, Dagon's skill isn't Countdown, so there's no way for enemies or bosses to resist it. A lot of other units have something similar, but Dagon's is at 90%, which can be skill seeded to 100. And unlike even Fenrir, Dagon also gets a track to make sure he always has victims. And that's on top of getting regeneration and even getting HP before being hit. He hits hard and has the HP to last throughout the fight, which matters when you want to put him on the front lines, where he works best. He even spreads both Stigma, Curse, and Fear, 3 status buffs he didn't need to have, but does. He's a senselessly good unit that was just a flat-out improvement to one that was already good. Coolness-wise, we get an insane amount of lore from his events, which I really like. We get lore about the old ones, the lost world of Canaan, and even how world representatives work. He's a great unit. The only thing he lacks is synergy, having little ways to support his allies. Which brings me to number 3. Pool Party Heracles, and yes, that is actually how you say his name. You know number 9 on our list, Kresnik? He was there because his ability to fill 2 roles, both close and long range, is really good. Well, Heracles is very similar. He has combo and switches from wand to sword, and he also has crit. But here's the thing. Unlike Kresnik, Heracles also spreads 4 buffs to units to his left and right, applies Drain and Curse, and gains an advantage from Drain and Curse. Heracles doesn't fill 2 roles, he fills 3. He's long range, close range, and support all at once. If Dagon is the power crept version of Shino, Pool Party Heracles is the power crept version of Kresnik. He just does what someone who's so good they managed to be on our list does, but better. Because he fills 3 roles, he has synergy with literally everyone because he can do whatever they need. You need someone to hold the front line or shore up the rear? Heracles can do it. You need someone to spread offensive or defensive buffs? Heracles already has the butter knife. And if you want to build a team around Curse or Drain, just slot him in. And none of this is mutually exclusive. He can do all of that at the same time. That alone is good enough to get him a spot on this list, even if he was the uncoolest character in Housamo, which he isn't. I haven't actually gotten to reading the Pool Party event, but he was reasonably entertaining in the Valentine's Time Slip event. He's the other half of the event's whole theming around love. While Echo is mourning over love she never got, Heracles is mourning over a love he lost. It's really neat, and I promise I'll get to reading a translation of the Summer Pool Twilight event soon. Probably. Maybe. Don't hold your breath. With that done, let's go to number 2, Night Glow's Kurogane. This dude doesn't seem like much at first. The only thing smaller than his HP is his damage. And as you go down the list, you see that none of his buffs or advantages are very good. Like seriously, bonus damage against Mechman enemies? Aren't those rare as hell? And then you get to that final skill and it's just...
Hey yo, what the fuck?
That's even higher direct damage than Dagon. And if it's not a boss or something weird, it's going to be at least 90% of their HP, leaving them dead in one attack. The only problem with the skill is that it's limited to a 3x3 space, so Kurogane can't sweep those long stages. However, he can very easily clear any 3-square stage in the minimum amount of turns. It's hard rating his buffs and debuffs because they all kind of suck, but this one skill doesn't just carry this unit, it carries entire teams. All he needs to pull a Linan and clear the entire screen is to be paired with ranged units. They can be gun or wand, it doesn't really matter, they're just there to pick off the half-dead scraps because Kurogane just removes 90% of their HP. Or well, he does, as long as the enemy doesn't have reversal, then they just heal a bunch. So you basically have nothing to worry about as long as you aren't doing Hermes' event. And coolness-wise, I like Kurogane. He's the spiffy, nice and caring older brother, you know? He does it in the Nightglows event, and even when his memories are gone, he does it in the Kanan events. It's nice. Now, before we hit number 1, it's time for some honorable mentions. First, Surtur. He spreads protection, gives HP and CP to everyone to his left, right, front, and back for 5 squares. That is such a hilariously widespread. Next is Christmas Nomad. He's one of the few dudes that can actually spread concentration, which is something you should abuse. Then we have Cthulhu's 3-star. He does direct damage when disappearing. He's a sacrificial pawn made for those high difficulty quests. Of course, there's Summer Shanong. Finally, Onsen Meniaki, he spreads skill lock and stigma, making for one hell of a team with Yangshi Krampus. And now, without further ado, number 1. What's better than a broken unit that can clear the entire screen? How about a unit that can make other units broken enough to clear a screen? One thing you have to understand about this game is that weapon types act as a way to balance things. For example, Masanori, who has a 100% chance to cause possession. It's a great skill with great proc that can completely turn around fights, so he's blow type, so he can only do that to one person. Now just imagine what kind of nonsense you'd be able to do if he had infinite range. Thankfully, for all things sensible and balanced, that isn't the case. Right? Enter Life Wonder's mistake. Oz may be my favorite character, but this has nothing to do with that. This is me asking Life Wonders,
What the fuck were they thinking?
why does this stupid little lion have the ability to give anyone infinite range? Like, Masanori is balanced around being blow tight, but with this stupid lion, he can possess the entire board. And it doesn't begin or end with this harebrained husky either. Any unit with a decent buff or debuff becomes broken with him in hand. Let's use other characters already on this list. Licho can give skill lock to the entire board, Typhoon can give charm to the entire board, Toji can give possession to, or just flat out kill the entire board. Or just skip all of that and use Dagon and have him just one-shot the screen. Oz doesn't just have one nuke, he has multiple. And Oz doesn't just apply weapon change to units in front, but also behind him. That's right, he can spread his game-breaking buff to not one, but 2 units at once. Eat your freaking heart out, Linan. This stupid cat basically suplexed you straight into hell because you've been left in the dust. And unlike just about every other unit in this game, Oz is only going to get better. As more and more units get released and new and old debuffs get better proc, Oz is only going to be a better and better choice. The only way he could ever be left behind is if another unit could give infinite range with more consistency. And unless Life Wonders is actually insane, they're going to see how broken Oz is and scrap the idea altogether. I'm not even going to get into coolness because it doesn't matter. Even if he was the most annoying, awfulest character ever, a skill set like this would force him to be number 1. I don't really have anything more to say other than like and subscribe, check out my Ko-fi and Patreon, and tune into my finale of the Sonic Frontier stream on Monday. Although, real quick, before we go, we have to do our Patreon shoutouts. For our 3 stars, we have special thanks to 87 Werehog and Zoro Richao. For our 4 stars, we have Miki Moon, who's breaking through it all. For our Super D-Tuber special 5-star shoutouts, we have Unknown RC, who's ready to dance with destiny, and Vanilla Flower, who will find their flame, and Poor Mage, who doesn't look down. And finally, we have Mahagasaur, who is undefeatable. Yes, I have been listening to the Sonic Frontier soundtrack on loop, sue me. And as always, this is Rose Fury signing out.